Well, I tell y'all, once we brought that last video back to a decent end, I was able to come back in the same afternoon and carry out a little more extra work and try to do another video here. I think we're going to try to demonstrate one more little step to come on these little Santa Clauses here. And the book they come out of and is called Carving Santas from Around the World by Cindy Jocelyn Carhart. So I make plenty of these. I've made plenty of them over the years. The steps are fairly simple, but I think I've just decided on one more step we can tackle today. That is to carve these lines out around Santa's backpack and then carve his backpack down to a little curve. So I think we can probably get a bit of a littler knife to do that with. It's probably not all that hard a step to take, but it's going to come out here eventually, and I'm going to probably kind of take care of the little trim on the last part and some places where I sort of forgot all about it on the previous video with the previous step, but we're taking care of that little matter here and making things turn out the best way we can, the best way they need to be. And that's what I'd like to share here is that we're going to kind of carve around here and make sure his backpack is made just down to a little bit of a curve and make it kind of narrower and try to lose all the pointedness in it. Take it down another little step and make it come out so much better for all the ways it's going to be in the long run and the matters of things and how we're going to take care of the little things and how they mean a lot when we do, and show people that there's just a little grace involved in the making of these things, showing people that we're taking care of little steps as they come, little steps as they matter. And right now, this is how I'd like to share that it comes out at the end once you get the backpack carved down. And you can see how, with the way we did the shoulders in the last video, how they came out. One little thing I'd like to share about it is, it was a few years ago. I was at my woodcarvers meeting out at McConnell Springs, and there were a couple of young ladies from Indiana out there. They were sisters. One of them happened to be blind, but it was good that we kind of showed them my stuff. I mean, you know, the girl who was blind, I say that she might not be able to see things, but she could sure feel things and tell what they were. I had her feel on my Santas, and there was one of them I made to which the backpack hadn't been completely carved out yet, so she pointed to the little point on the back and asked me what it was, and I told her that that was Santa's backpack, the pack he carries all his toys in, but that it just hadn't been completely carved out yet, so there was just still that little point there, because I just had yet to carve the rest of it out. I'm impressed by the things that different people with disabilities can do. Probably, I'd say, about 13 years ago, when I first started going to the Woodcarvers Guild meetings, there was a man in there who was blind as a bat and he could carve. It was really impressive because apparently carving the wood was what he liked to do and what he loved to do, what he was able to do. And I tell you, the thing of it is that it's all just interesting to see what all people can do with their different disabilities they have. I'm just always impressed. People get a little impressed by the fact that though I have autism spectrum disorder, there's just a lot of stuff that I'd be out doing and just kind of showing people how much I can do. Despite that, all the ways that that's just been one more of those things I've been able to overcome in life. and probably done a lot of things for somebody who has disabilities like that. I mean, I've gotten out, I've driven a car, I've gotten around in one, been doing it for many years. Little things are just going to matter all the more as we work about them, and I've seen different people get different ways with disabilities. I used to go to something called Independent Place, which was kind of a little kind of support group for people with disabilities. I loved it so much and I miss it so much now. All my days I was there and around all those people, it's just gone such a long way, and it just kind of got to where, I just kind of got busy with doing some other things, joining some other groups, getting to where I kind of had a little less time to go there, but it was a good group. It was a fun place. We kind of did a lot of nice and neat stuff. And I know there was one man there, and he was blind because he had an accident in the military when he was 20. There was like it had to do with the fact that some kind of, he was working with some kind of a military vehicle, and some chemical came out of the vehicle, or some kind of fuel that was used for the vehicle. It came out and damaged his eyes, and he was completely blind to the point that he wore a pair of dark glasses to hide his sockets. And I'd say that there was also a man in there who was born blind, and he was a musician. And at that time in my life, I used to be a musician, so that was kind of the way I met him at the time. And he rode a bus where the driver was the security guard at the hospital where I was working, and that same bus driver and security guard was also the one who every other Sunday led the chapel service at that hospital. So I'd come up there, I'd come up for the service. We had it about 10 minutes. I'd join in, and that was kind of how I met the people who attended, and met this minister who was also a security guard and a bus driver. So he would sometimes in the chapel service share this man's music with us, and I would hear it and I'd be blessed. That was how I got introduced to him. And so it was like so much goes around and comes around, and so many ways we learn to know other people and accept other people and respect other people. So it was all just a world where, with all our disabilities, we all come together. I'm here to say that there's probably people out there who feel like they are people of minority, living outside the norm, whatever it is. And this little world has just come to a place in life where we kind of see from all different points of view. Some people just think so much that religions change. That's true, religions might change, but I'm just here to tell you all that the truth of God's Word does not. And I'd say that, we have to accept everybody. There's probably certain lifestyles that, according to how I read the Bible, I might not choose to support, but we all know that we can accept each other and be good to each other. There's a lot of things, a lot of bases on which discrimination should not take place. We look out for each other, and it's time in this world we all do our part. Of course, I get really deep when I talk about little disabilities here and there. There were times I used to hang around in the bars and talk about mine to people. It was just kind of a little way I was out there just being an advocate for what at the time we called Asperger's syndrome. That was my diagnosis then, but people change names of diagnoses over the years. They no longer call it Asperger's these days, but they like call it autism spectrum disorder. It kind of makes us all different, and we all think differently, and we all see differently. There's been so much to be said about it. Some people have said about Bill Gates that I've heard rumors that he came on national TV and said he was Aspie, which is another name for a person with Asperger's, but I'd probably say that I never heard him say it. I never heard much of it. I've only heard it rumored by people, and hard to say for sure when you don't know. There have been people who have said that people in history had it. They look at Albert Einstein, they look at Isaac Newton, they look at Nikola Tesla. They think that some of these people were kind of different in that way, having disorders like that. I have a book called Different Like Me. It's a book of autism heroes, and I got introduced in that book to Sophia Germain. She was like a mathematician from France, from I can't remember what century it was, but she was a long time ago, probably said to have been maybe the first woman mathematician. There's all these stories about how it was between her and her father and things he'd try to do to keep her out of his math books and keep her from trying to solve the problems. And I heard that there was a time when in the middle of the night she carried a book in there with her and carried a candle and wrapped a blanket around her to go and sort of like get into the book and read some stuff, and they do all they could to keep her in bed and to keep her lights out and keep her from doing it in the night. But she was all sneaky and stuff, and she found a way. One night her father came up, found her laying asleep with a book on the counter, and found her laying there and wrapped in a towel, looking into the book, and finally it made sense to him. He was finally convinced, finally decided he'd let her do it, just because he knew she could, and he knew it was her thing. In those days, people didn't believe that women should do math. They didn't think it was for them. They always thought it was more of a customary little man thing. And we know that everything you assume isn't always the truth, because there's so much you can learn from people when you kind of get to know them a little better. There was one little backpack here on this Santa that seemed like it didn't come out very well the last time. Probably didn't carve the last step on it that I was supposed to around the hair. So I got around to finally taking care of that, getting that under control and getting it all smoothed out, taken care of, like it needed to be. Probably just made a cut through my thumb protector into my thumb, but we're going to keep on carving here. We're going to keep on working it. I mean, I'd say if any blood comes out, it won't matter too much, because that's what thumb protectors are for, and that's what gloves are for. You might still get a little nick here and there from just working and carving with the wood, but just so you see, it's one of those things where, and it turns out I did create some blood, so we're gonna get something out to take care of this. We don't know what it'll be. Thankfully, it was just a little bitty cut, not the kind that requires any stitches. So that was the great thing about it. I'd say that turns out I might have to take care of a little matter here, and unfortunately, I'd say I don't have any band-aids in the shop. So I'd say, if anything, it's like, I hope we can continue this video. Might turn the thumb protector around, kind of card from the other side here. Hopefully it won't bleed through the other side and I can finish this video and finish this little project we're doing here. But I'm just here to say that that's pretty much the way it goes. Sometimes, just sometimes, if you talk while you're carving, you can have little accidents like that. That's why they always say that even to use saws, you should always be careful. You never know how the saws are going to do you, or how they're going to do you wrong. I think there was probably a little pom-pom or two on one of these hats that I probably missed the last time around. Maybe on a few of them, but we'll take care of that right now. I'll check all the others and make sure I didn't miss their little pom-poms. No, it turns out I got the pom-poms right on every other one of them, and there's been times when just because I had to end videos in places, or just because I could only fit so much into one video, sometimes I've had to sort of retire things out, and then there'd be a little step or two I'd forget here or there and kind of miss a little step that needed to be taken. So we're taking care of this the best it can be, the best way it needs to be. So I'm here to tell you all that accidents happen, mistakes happen. We all have accidents, we all make mistakes. We've all had little injuries in our lives, and we've all had little wounds in our lives. We've all kind of at times fallen and hurting ourselves. Like there was a song Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, used to sing that went, "Did you ever fall or hurt your hand or knee? Did you ever bite your tongue? Did you ever find the stinger of a bee stuck in your thumb? I did too when I was very new. I had a lot of hurts and scares and worries when I was growing up just like you." I tell you all the things I think about that man, all the little lessons he taught us, all the little lessons he taught us about from the time that he was a kid. You know, he was real talented and kind and always kind of spoke from the right words and spoke the right things and said all the nicest things. And you know, there would be little plays. He'd play little board games with you on TV. There were strange little things I'd see him do, and sometimes I'd want to do it too. Sometimes he would be shaking fish food into the fish bowl on his cartoon, and what I used to think was that he was putting salt, he was shaking salt into the fish bowl, but that wasn't what it was just a little container of fish food he was shaking in. Sometimes, just sometimes, we see little things as kids and everything's not what it looks like. We also know sometimes that we learn through our videos that all the things we see on an Instagram account, sometimes we don't really understand at all, but you know, sometimes you think that life for another person looks so good, but once you see them and once you're around them, once you see what they're really doing, you just find out it's not quite what it appears to be. People take pictures of other people's possessions and post them as their own. They might just be kind of working in a little person's business or office and might get on there and post a picture of the little place that they're cleaning up as a janitor, and they act like they own it. Sometimes even in life, people borrow possessions from their friends and relatives. They even drive their relatives fancy cars and act like they own them. It's just a little strange thing we see, strange thing they do, and little do we know, it's going to be a little cost-worthy thing. These days, I tell you all that I'm getting older, I'm having different values than I used to. It's kind of to the point where there's just not quite as much stuff I'd be getting online to do these days. These days, I kind of keep my Facebook pages a little more silent than I used to because, sometimes I try to keep good friends, and if I post the wrong thing, don't want to offend anybody. Sometimes if it's all political or something, it might be a little different view, and sometimes I try to take all things into account because, you know, it's all about the fact that people are who they are. They are what they are. And we all kind of got to look out for what we do. There's been times on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter when sometimes I've gone on there and posed as a minister. I'm not really a minister, but I've had an ordination certificate that I purchased from an online ministry and had it and ordered it in the mail and had it sent to me. And there are some websites that will do that if you send them money. It might differ from one to the next as far as how they're going to do it and how they're going to go about it, but it'll just be a little realistic thing to come to you and stay with you over time. The world is always better and shining lights on other people, and I've been a light in some places and just kind of always wanted to be there to try and make people smile all the time. Gets a little different from one place to the next. You've already made certain mistakes in a place. Sometimes those mistakes can become your reputation. There's been times I've gone into restaurants and bars and have preached, and even though I might have only done it at maybe one particular location, I might have even had a corporate reputation for it. And sometimes, just sometimes, if CEOs knew enough about it, there'd be times they'd keep you on record and you'd probably come back to a place and not really be welcome there anymore, or even a place where they might ask you to move to a different seat, have a different person serve you because maybe the person in one section's uncomfortable waiting on you. I'm here to say, you go into a place and you do something foolish, do what people aren't receptive to, it's going to be a little thing that's going to sometimes give you a little reputation that you might keep for the rest of your life. But nonetheless, one thing you do need to find in life is Jesus, because Jesus paid it all. No matter how bad a life you've lived, if you find Jesus, he will forgive you. He forgave the thief who hung on the cross next to him. He even forgave Saul of Tarsus and made him the Apostle Paul. Of all things we have in life, one thing is for sure, Jesus makes it all. He provides everything for us. That's what I used to teach those little kids when I taught their Sunday school class at a certain church where I used to be a member years ago. Taught them a lot, and they learned a lot from me, and always thankful for how much I've been able to teach them. They were my babies then, and they grow up to be so much better now. I've just seen them succeed as they got older in life and moved on to new things. But as you can see now, I finally carved the step I needed to carve into those little Santa Clauses, and it is now time to end the video. So take care, God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day.